Every day of your life, you move through systems of power that other people made. Do you sense them? Do you understand power? Do you realize why it matters? Power is something we're often uncomfortable talking about. That's especially true in civic life, how we live together in community. In a democracy, power is supposed to reside with the people, period. Any further talk about power, and who really has it, seems a little dirty, maybe even evil. But power is no more inherently good or evil than fire or physics. It just is. It governs how any form of government works. It determines who gets to determine the rules of the game. So learning how power operates is key to being effective, being taken seriously, and not being taken advantage of. In this lesson, we'll look at where power comes from, how it's exercised, and what you can do to become more powerful in public life. Let's start with a basic definition. Power is the ability to make others do what you would have them do. Of course, this plays out in all arenas of life, from family to the workplace to our relationships. Our focus is on the civic arena, where power means getting a community to make the choices and to take the actions that you want. There are 6 main sources of civic power. First, there's physical force and a capacity for violence. Control of the means of force, whether in the police or a militia, is power at its most primal. A second core source of power is wealth. Money creates the ability to buy results and to buy almost any other kind of power. The third form of power is state action, government. This is the use of law and bureaucracy to compel people to do or not do certain things. In a democracy, for example, we the people theoretically give government its power through elections. In a dictatorship, state power emerges from the threat of force, not the consent of the governed. The fourth type of power is social norms, or what other people think is okay. Norms don't have the centralized machinery of government. They operate in a softer way, peer-to-peer. But they can certainly make people change behavior and even change laws. Think about how norms around marriage equality today are evolving. The fifth form of power is ideas. An idea, individual liberty, say, or racial equality, can generate boundless amounts of power if it motivates enough people to change their thinking and actions. And so the sixth source of power is numbers, lots of humans. A vocal mass of people creates power by expressing collective intensity of interest and by asserting legitimacy. Think of the Arab Spring or the rise of the Tea Party. Crowds count.
Every evening in the media, you can see agitation against Russia, which is starting to become unbearable. Russia has been assured in various treaties that NATO will not further pursue its eastward expansion, and there is an urgent need for those treaties to be upheld.
The security conference is an insecurity conference because it agitates, and agitation against other countries is not allowed.
These are the 6 main sources of power, what power is. So now, let's think about how power operates. There are 3 laws of power worth examining. Law number 1, power is never static. It's always either accumulating or decaying in the civic arena. So if you aren't taking action, you're being acted upon. Law number 2, power is like water. It flows like a current through everyday life. Politics is the work of harnessing that flow in a direction you prefer. Policymaking is an effort to freeze and perpetuate a particular flow of power. Policy is power frozen. Law number 3, power compounds. Power begets more power. And so does powerlessness. The only thing that keeps law number 3 from leading to a situation where only one person has all the power is how we apply laws 1 and 2. What rules do we set up so that a few people don't accumulate too much power, and so they can't enshrine their privilege in policy? That's the question of democracy. And you can see each of these laws at work in any news story. Low-wage workers organize to get higher pay. Oil companies push to get a big pipeline approved. Gay and lesbian couples seek the legal right to marry. Urban parents demand school vouchers. You may support these efforts or not. Whether you get what you want depends on how adept you are with power. Which brings us finally to what you can do to become more powerful in public life. Here, it's useful to think in terms of literacy. Your challenge is to learn how to read power and write power. To read power means to pay attention to as many texts of power as you can. I don't mean books only. I mean seeing society as a set of texts. Don't like how things are in your campus or city or country? Map out who has what kind of power, arrayed in what systems. Understand why it turned out this way, who's made it so, and who wants to keep it so. Study the strategies others in such situations used. Frontal attack or indirection. Coalitions or charismatic authority. Read so you may write. To write power requires first that you believe you have the right to write, to be an author of change. You do. As with any kind of writing, you learn to express yourself, speak up in a voice that's authentic, organize your ideas, then organize other people, practice consensus building, practice conflict. As with writing, it's all about practice. Every day you have a chance to practice, in your neighborhood and beyond. Set objectives, then bigger ones. Watch the patterns, see what works. Adapt, repeat. This is citizenship. In this short lesson, we've explored where civic power comes from, how it works, and what you can do to exercise it. One big question remaining is the why of power. Do you want power to benefit everyone or only you? Are your purposes pro-social or anti-social? This question isn't about strategy. It's about character. And that's another set of lessons. But remember this: power plus character equals a great citizen, and you have the power to be one.
In liquid democracy, you can vote directly on any issue you want. But if you don't want to vote, your values can still be represented by someone you trust. Suppose you care a lot about women's rights, but don't care a lot about corporate tax laws. Your friend Bob is a super smart guy and you trust him a lot. With liquid democracy, you can delegate your vote to Bob so that any time a vote comes up that you don't have the time, interest, or energy to take part in, Bob can step in and vote with 2 votes instead of 1. Now, if Bob wants to pass his votes on to Sally, she can vote for all 3 of you. If at any time you stop trusting Bob, you can take your vote back instantly, without having to wait years for another election like you do in our current system. This means that the people with the most voting power have that power because people trust them.
Political action is not agitation, it's construction. One of the core questions about governance is who gets to represent whom, right? So our proposal is to implement a liquid democracy protocol where we can choose different people to represent us for different topics, right? So I can choose someone to represent me for matters regarding healthcare because I know that they are a doctor that's been working, he's been working or she's been working in the public healthcare system for 35 years. I trust her with my vote. So we can have a bottom-up, dynamic representation that surfaces social leadership. That's called liquid democracy. We can give ourselves an identity. Nation states are losing their monopoly on giving us an identity, but that's going to the corporations, right? Facebook is trying to claim the right to give us an identity. But there's another way of doing it. There's the network providing their identity. This is Roma. She's my daughter. She's 2.5 now. This was the day after she was born. Right, so when Roma was born, we registered her birth on the blockchain using a system called proof of existence before we registered her with the state of California. So it's not the states and it's not the corporations that are telling my daughter that she's someone in the world. We did that. The network is providing for that identity. So there is another way. But essentially what we wanted to prove was that if the United States disappears as a construct, or if California disappears as a construct, which is what it is, we believe in the idea of the United States. We believe in the idea of countries. They're not a physical, they don't really exist as such. We believe that they're an institution that exists. And they haven't been here forever, so there's no reason to believe they're going to be here forever. So what we wanted to do was to say this event, Roma's birth, took place at this point in time, and we're appending this to this ledger that it's an append-only ledger, so it's incorruptible. You can't go back and change that information. So the idea was like showing that there is a way to give ourselves an identity and say, like, this happened, this girl was born here. And I don't care if the state of California tomorrow goes crazy and, it's that her birth certificate doesn't, have any influence. It's there, and it's going to be there. So yeah, blockchain baby is doing it. Who counts the votes? Right? This is another key part of democracy. I come from a country where the ballots are burned after an election. Where we count the votes manually. I did this when I was running for elections myself. Until 2 o'clock in the morning, fighting with the other party, stacks of papers like that. They're called sheet lists, like listas sábanas, like a sheet. They're that long. They're like a canvas. We have a better way of doing it. We can use technology. We can use the blockchain to register the votes and build an incorruptible ledger. No one is going to tell us that the votes are not what they were. Right? There's a far better way of doing this. What jurisdictions? That this is another key piece of democracy. Again, I'm from Argentina. Argentina represents me on all issues regarding in the international arena. They vote for me in climate change issues, for example. But why can't, Costa Rica represent me? They have a much more progressive energy policy. I trust them with my vote. Hell, I would give them money to push what they're doing everywhere in the world. But I can't. Why? Because I'm Argentinian. And we still live in a world designed for nation states. With Democracy Earth, we did a digital referendum for Colombia. When Colombia voted the referendum for peace, 7 million Colombians couldn't vote because they weren't in Colombia at the time. We're in the 21st century. This blows my mind. And so what we did was we grabbed the referendum for peace, we divided it in many different clauses, and we asked them to vote in those different clauses. And the thing with referendums is that they are a very blunt instrument of democracy. It normally gets boiled down to yes or no, for or against one issue, and everything else kind of pivots around that. But in this case, when we did it with Democracy Earth, we showed that most of the clauses, like 90% of the clauses, were approved, except one. The one that actually prevented the referendum for peace to get approved, right? If the FARC were allowed to be part of government. They could have approved 90% of the referendum instead of losing the whole battle because it's hinged on just one issue. So this is Democracy Earth. Obviously, we're experimenting. This is a learning process. Any group can give itself their governance institutions. We need to learn how to do this. We haven't done it for such a long time that we don't know how to be active participants, active citizens. Democracy Earth is built around these three issues that I discussed: identity, peer-to-peer validated identity with blockchain keys; representation, it's global, it's dynamic, it's horizontal, it's called liquid democracy; and voting. The network stores the votes. It's a shared incorruptible ledger. We are not bound by the political institutions we've inherited. We collectively own them. It's up to us to decide what democracy do we want, what governance structures do we want to build. And Buckminster Fuller said a phrase that I live by: you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that renders the existing model obsolete. So I urge you, every time you wake up in the morning and you just like me, you feel you just want to go and fight reality, think about what do we want to build instead? What do we want to replace it with? Because you know what? It's up to us.
Comes from ancient Greek polis, the city-state, in which the first kind of democracy was carried out by its citizens. They, like us today, identify problems and discuss them. We do it on the streets and in bars, and sometimes begrudgingly at Thanksgiving dinners. In Athens, the citizens all came together on a designated hill outside of the city to discuss current issues and create policy solutions. Every free man, literally only free men by the way, had a say and a vote to decide on a policy for each issue. Thus, word on the street was transformed into politics. This input from citizens into policymaking is what we call direct democracy. Modern nation-states, like Germany in our example here, do not share one common public space where all citizens could meet. Reaching an understanding about common issues merely by talking them over is unfeasible for the amount of people that would have to be included in our modern societies. The problems of our time are very much different from those of ancient Greece in three ways. Because of the diversity among our citizens, mitigating their issues is far more complex. Moreover, to be a citizen today is no longer a vocation. Unlike the men of Athens, we usually have to work to earn a living and do not have the time to spend all of a day pondering and discussing political issues. That may be part of the reason why many people today feel they do not have the adequate expert knowledge about those issues to contribute to the political sphere. What most modern democracies do instead, then, is have designated representatives from the populace devote their full time to be professional politicians. They carry out the public discussion of issues in our place. Mass media channels their discussions back to our societies, but only the politicians get to decide on those issues in the designated political arena. We, the public, do get the chance to vote for a representative of one worldview or political persuasion in certain intervals, usually every few years. In most of our democratic systems, the representatives are being organized through party affiliation. The majorities that come about in the elections then get to decide on current issues and turn them into policies for as long as they are elected. We regular citizens do not get to have an input on policymaking during that time. This system of politics is what we call indirect democracy. Recently, there are people who are no longer satisfied with such a rigid system that all but eliminates the input of citizens from policymaking. They argue that any citizen at any time should have the chance to make their voice heard in the policymaking process, even if they do not want to become full-time politicians. Full-time politicians and parties may still be useful, but every citizen should be given a vote for every issue on the table. In this system, people may choose to delegate their vote to another person whom they trust to make an informed decision in their place. They in turn may delegate those collected votes further on to yet somebody else, a politician who stands for a certain worldview perhaps. They may also choose to elect professional politicians themselves. And now, people also get to vote on policies directly. Now, there are several ways in which the input from people may be transformed into policy. Moreover, whenever there is a particular issue in which a person has such a strong opinion they do not want to trust anyone else to make the decision for them, they can take back their vote from the person they delegated it to and vote on the policy themselves. It is this fluid alternation between direct democracy and indirect democracy that gives name to the proposed system of liquid democracy. Modern technology has made a public space that all citizens can inhabit possible. Instead of on a hill outside the city, we may meet in cyberspace. We can discuss events online to determine issues that warrant policymaking. Collaboration tools, of which Wikipedia is but one small example, can facilitate ways in which many people can have an input on policies. And computers and modern cryptography can tally votes and the delegation of votes so we can decide on those policies. This way, all citizens could partake in policymaking once again, much like on the Agora. the hill outside of Athens.
Do you completely trust the government, the religions, the media, the education system? Do you completely trust what society tells you about the meaning of life and your place in it? If you don't trust them completely, then you have an idea of the 6,000-year-old lie that we will talk about now. When I finally saw through this 6,000-year-old lie, I almost fell off my chair. I encountered the reality they've been trying to hide from us, and then I felt free like a bird. I discovered the hidden game of life. It answered the deepest questions of life, such as, what am I? Where did I come from? What was I doing here? How can I make my dreams and fantasies come true? The inconvenient truth is, we've been given wrong answers to these questions. I'm sure you've noticed that something is going on. Something just doesn't fit. Many of us can feel it. It's time to massively expand our thinking now, don't you think? Let me tell you all about the game of life, and then we can talk about who lied to us, why they did it, and what we can do about it. Basically, life is a game. It's the only game in town. You're playing the game, whether you like it or not. And although you don't remember it just yet, you co-created this game, the game of life. Now, I know it probably sounds fucking crazy, but hear me out. Have some patience and suspend your disbelief for a few minutes, and I promise it will be worth your time. First, listen to the concept and understand it, and later we can find supporting evidence of what we're about to talk about. You see, the game of life is like a dream, whereby you are the main character within the dream, and you are the dreamer of the dream. You're the hero of your life's movie. You are on your hero's journey. The 5 steps, an overview of the game of life. The game of life is the game that spirit plays, the game that consciousness plays. To play the game, spirit or consciousness takes these 5 steps to create, to play, and to end the game of life. Step 1. Consciousness or spirit has a desire. It imagines a suitable world of form to experience that desire. Step 2. It then creates that world, a world of form. In other words, a physical reality. Step 3. It opens and enters that world. Because spirit or consciousness doesn't have a form, it has to create a suitable form for itself, a body that fits into the world of form that it has created. And so, spirit or consciousness creates a body, and this is also known as an avatar. Step 4. Using this avatar or body, spirit then plays a game. Consciousness explores that world as a test of energy. This energetic test is what gives consciousness the ability to experience being or not being that which it desired. Consciousness plays with the energies of life and experiences being, doing, and having. It experiences becoming its desire or failing to do so, and it experiences handling obstacles and growing from the journey. It plays the game. Step 5. Finally, it closes that world and lives with new insights. Through these new insights, it gets to grow and to evolve. The experiences and the insights gained help it answer the question, what am I? The answer comes to it through actual life experiences. Sometimes it answers the question, what am I, by experiencing what am I not? And that, my friend, is a nice and simple model of the game of life. And if you look at it carefully, you'll notice that it matches some of the creation myths on the planet. It even matches our own birth, life, and death experience. The 5 parts of the game. As with all games, the game of life has the following 5 game parts. By the way, you'll find these 5 game parts in any and all games. Football, chess, netball, motor racing, and just about any other game that you can imagine. These 5 parts are standard game parts of all games. I just didn't sit down and make them up. These are standard parts. They're universal in all games. Game part number 1, the game space. Game part number 2, the game's boundaries. Game part number 3, the game's rules of interaction. Game part number 4, the game's artifacts, also known as the game's objects and events. Game part number 5, the game's goal. Let us look at each part in a little more detail, especially as it relates to the game of life. 1. The game space. The game space is a space where the rules of real life are temporarily suspended. The rules of the game replace the rules of real life. In the game space of football, which is the football field, the rules of football replace the rules of real life. In other words, we forget real life for 90 minutes and we play football in the football field. In the game of life, the rules of the spiritual realm are suspended and the rules of the physical realm are applied. When we are born into earth, we forget our spiritual reality for our lifetime. We play the role of a human being until we die. Game spaces create a make-believe world that is not the real world. It lets the players to engage in activity and outcomes otherwise not possible in the real world. Earth is a make-believe world, the game space in the game of life. It allows spirit to embody a human avatar, to then engage in activities and outcomes that would otherwise not be possible in the real world. The real world here is the infinite and eternal spirit world. 2. The game's boundaries. Each game has boundaries. Football, for example, has a football field as the game boundaries. The goalpost is also a boundary. The two halves of the courts are also boundaries. The parts of the body that the players are allowed to use or to hit are also boundaries, and so on. The game of life has many types of boundaries. For example, space-time boundaries like a country, a continent, a planet, a galaxy, a universe. Physiological boundaries like the five senses. The five senses are designed to produce the illusion of separation and limitation. There are also temporal boundaries like birth, death, and so on. Boundaries create constraints, and constraints serve many purposes, such as forcing you to think creatively, to face challenges and grow, to act before it's too late, and so on. 3. The game's rules of interaction. Rules are what make a game to become a self-functioning ecosystem. They also allow the players to win or to lose. For example, in football, you aren't allowed to play outside the football pitch, or to be offside, or to kick someone in the dick. Without rules, football would stop functioning. Rules define the constraints of the game space and how the objects and events interact, how the artifacts interact. In the game of life, we have rules or laws such as gravity, cause and effect, beliefs, the law of attraction, and so on. I believe the most important rule to learn in the game of life is how beliefs work. Beliefs are electromagnetic realities. They are actual systems made of thought forms. They filter and create your reality. They shape quantum energy through the law of attraction. They ensure that you always see and have what you believe precisely. This is the system that allows consciousness to know itself and to experience itself. 4. The game's artifacts. The objects and events. In a game of football, we have several artifacts. We have objects such as the ball, the uniforms, the goalposts, and even the other players themselves. We also have events such as goals scored, fouls, penalties, and so on. Objects and events create plot. They create story, narrative, meaning, and context. Through them, the players get to know themselves, grow, and transform. In the game of life, all objects and events are made of quantum energy. Everything in our physical universe has an atomic construction, no exceptions, and all atoms are made of subatomic units, such as protons, neutrons, and electrons, and these are called quantum energy. And quantum energy follows your beliefs to automatically customize your world. Energy responds to consciousness. Objects and events come into our experiences in perfect response to our beliefs. This way, our lives mirror our consciousness. That's the system. We create our reality in more ways, in deeper ways than we can imagine. Artifacts are also a camouflage that keeps away the real world. In the game of life, physical reality covers up or camouflages the spirit world. The artifacts themselves act as a veil. We humans are on this side of the veil, and spirit seems to be on the other side of the veil. It's an illusion, for indeed everything is actually one, but the camouflage is necessary for the game to be real. We have to separate the real world from the make-believe world. Artifacts also hold information about the game. They represent concepts within the game. For example, in the game of life, a wife, a husband, a car, a home, a shirt, and a highway are all artifacts. They hold certain data, information, knowledge, and meaning in our particular lives. The actions that the artifacts make are also information states. For example, if the wife kisses the husband, that is one information state. If she slaps him across the face, that is another information state. This information is also used to track progress or lack of progress, to keep scores, and to give a picture, so to speak, of the game's current state. The players themselves, meaning you and I, are also artifacts in and of themselves. People are both artifacts and the game's players. You are the hero of your life story, the main player in your game, but you're also an artifact in other people's stories. Now, players in the game assume various archetypal roles, such as the hero or the protagonist, the antagonists, the mentors, allies, and enemies, and so on. 5. The goal of the game. This one's easy. Every game has a goal. In soccer, it is to put more balls into your opponent's goalpost than they do. That's how you win. What is the goal of the game of life? Well, I'm sure each one's life is unique and it has its own goals. I cannot tell you what your life's goals are, what your life's lessons are, what your life's themes are. I cannot tell you that. That's up to you. But what I do know is that there does seem to be one main goal in the game of life. You see, our particular universe is a universe of duality, of opposites like light and dark, negative and positive, and so on. Polarities. Think about it now. The fact that there are polarities means that there is a hidden connection. The fact that life is made of opposite means it's not random. The existence of duality points at a hidden connection between all that is and all that is not, between light and dark. So to me, the ultimate goal of the game of life seems to be polarity integration. The ultimate goal is duality integration, which is also known by many names, such as transcending duality, integrating the yin and yang, unconditional love, being non-judgmental, freedom from the illusion of separation, attaining oneness, waking up from the dream of separation, atonement or at-one-ment, nirvana, moksha, enlightenment, forgiveness, and so on. Polarity integration, transcending duality. We have been lied to for 6,000 fucking years. Okay, so now we have the game of life in mind from a new perspective that's different from what we were told. Now we can look at the lie and better understand it. What is the lie? We have been given narratives, rules, and systems. These have been deliberately designed to corrupt our internal map of reality, the very map that we use to navigate and manifest our lives. What is a map of reality? A map of reality is our self-view plus our world-view. Our self-view is what we believe we are. Our worldview is what we believe the world is. Map of reality is equal to self-view plus worldview. Corrupting a population's map of reality results in them forgetting who they are, forgetting what they're doing here, what their purpose is, and how they create reality. It makes them feel like lost victims of life instead of powerful creators of reality. They become controllable, manipulable, sheeple. Corrupting a population's map of reality is achieved using 3 core lies. These 3 core lies form a mental matrix that enslaves mankind. The 3 core lies are very simple, and indeed you will recognize them as follows. The first lie. This is the self-view lie, and it says, you are nothing but a biological skin bag, and if you have a soul or spirit, it has little effect here, and it's something to possibly deal with only after death. The second lie. This is the worldview lie, and it says the world is unchallengeably solid. It is separated, disconnected, and it is purely mechanical. And the only way to get by is using hard work and struggle to move the physical pieces around mechanically. The third lie. This lie cements the other 2 lies, and it says, that's just the way it is. If you think differently, we ridicule you and we prosecute you. You must think the same like everyone else. Be, do, and have whatever the so-called authorities tell you. Join the herd, don't rock the boat. That's just the way life is. These seemingly simple 3 core lies control and enslave the planet's population. They make all other lies possible, and there are many, many more lies, but these 3 core lies make all the many other lies possible. We are born into a cultural story, a cultural narrative. It says, this is who you are and this is how the world works. We will drum it into you until you lose your childhood curiosity and your questioning. And so our minds become insidiously enslaved, generation after generation, with the same old shit. We are led to believe that we are the problem, that we are a threat to each other, that we are not enough, that humanity is a broken species, that without the authorities and their institutions, it would all go to the dogs, that we would kill each other and destroy ourselves. A system of divide and conquer has been set up to keep us in conflict, to keep us apart from each other and afraid of each other, and mean to each other. Race, gender, religion, and borders have been engineered to perpetuate conflict between us, and I do mean engineered. Various so-called authorities, certain groups of people, deliberately make evil plans, very long-term plans, very evil plans, to create conflict in the world for their own gains. You see, there's a saying, shit happens. Well, shit just doesn't happen. Shit takes time. Shit takes effort. These people or groups have ignited conflict deliberately. They have started wars and even rewritten history and education systems to support the lies. They have poisoned our food and the planet, often deliberately. They have set up debt-based banking to forever have everyone trapped in debt slavery that's impossible to get out of. As I'll show you in a different video, the economic system is deliberately engineered to create debt enslavement. There are many, many other better economic system alternatives that we could have used, but they've been deliberately ignored. Ignored because they would free people and destroy the reins of control controlled by the elite class. These groups of people have even corrupted our politics and media at the global level, all deliberately done on purpose, and they have then lied that this is just how life is. And then they acted as if they are trying to save us from the very thing that they purposely created. This has been going on for longer than you can imagine. Like a fish born into water, we don't even realize we have been born into a matrix of lies that keeps us small and disempowered, in fear and controllable. You see, the great philosopher Plato once said that those who tell the stories rule the world. We are born into a story that was crafted for us by hidden storytellers. The manipulation was done by certain groups that gain from this. There is indeed a method to the madness and a villain in a hat, so to speak. You can call this villain whatever you like, and indeed there are several villains or antagonists. It's not just one. Every story needs an antagonist, and there are more than one antagonist in a story. Psychologists call it the shadow, the New Agers call it the darkness, Islam calls it jinns, Gnostics calls it archons, Christians call it demons, Native Americans calls it flyers, the Far East calls it the serpent gods, Sumerians called it the Anunnaki, Zulus call it the Shitauri, Hopis called it snake brothers, and today we have the deep state, the shadow government, the cabal, the secret world government. Whatever you wish to call it, and however many there are, it doesn't matter. The point is, there is a villain in a hat. There is someone or something fucking with you. You think you're free, but you're not. Not as long as you're enslaved and defined by someone else's thought system. A thought system that makes you fail to see your true radiance and power and dominion. So, as long as the three core lies remain, the problems will remain. The psychology and the chaos that we see will continue to be maintained by the villains. There is literally a war of consciousness, and they win when you are asleep. So wake up. An awakened being is impossible to control, for they cannot be fooled. An awakened planet is impossible to enslave with stupid shit. Stupid shit like privately controlled debt-based central banking systems, manipulative media, unnecessary unending wars, and so on. But when a population is asleep, it is so easy to maintain the three core lies. Maintain them by simply structuring certain things in a certain way. Things such as banking and financial systems, media, military industrial complexes, petrodollar complexes, food systems, pharmaceuticals, politics, religion, and so on. Make no mistake, there is a strong concerted effort to dumb down the population, to maintain it in a certain old system that works for the controllers, the villains, the antagonists in the story of life. The systems that run the world were deliberately engineered, artificially made to be the way they are by particular interest groups. What I mean is, we did not get here simply because that was the only way we could have evolved, or because these were our only alternatives. It was instead deliberately steered this way. There is someone at the helm directing this ship called Earth, someone who should not be there. You see, the natural state of humanity is bliss, love, connection. That's how babies are born. Babies learn prejudice, racism, nationalism, and so on as they grow. They are not born with it, they are programmed and conditioned into it. Humans on the earth, by nature, are benevolent. They have a benevolent natural state. The malevolence or the evil is actually manufactured. It is programmed. It is learned. We don't need to tolerate it or to live with it. The major problems we face already have solutions. The problems we face individually as people and collectively as a planet, they already have solutions. We simply need to drop the lies and we will see the solutions.
The cultural and historic belief has been a broken one, a deceptive one. It has been that the creative source is in the heavens above, and that you are in the mud below. This has made you believe you are without the Creator. Yet, the Creator can only be in the mud, and in your skin, and in your breath, and in the eyes of a child, and the dying old man or woman. By its very nature, the Creator is in all of creation. You are God, playing a human role, for a while.
And so, there is only one way out, and that is to reset our self-view and worldview. Believing the lies is the reason why we stay stuck, and that is the secret. Drop the lies in your personal life and the problems will drop automatically. You don't have to listen to their old story. You don't have to dance to their music. You can dance to your own music, your own story. You don't have to take on the map of reality that has been handed to you, that the system gave you. You can find your own map of reality that makes more sense and works better. It is time for the greatest secret that has been kept from you to be revealed, and that is the secret of your own divinity, of your true nature as a piece of source energy with the power to create reality through pure intent. It is the secret of your world's quantum multidimensional nature, a world made of energy that responds unquestioningly to consciousness, to human intent. The secret of your position as a conscious creator being, a sovereign being, and to recognize how much more exciting and blissful your lives can be. More exciting than the scraps that are presented as life's only choices by the systems that run our lives. You are told more and more that you have no option, that your governments are in control, that only the people with really big money are supposed to be in charge, and that power is a thing for the elites only. The mind can be a jail built out of bullshit. Break free. The truth is within you. It is not outside you in the hands of so-called authorities. The kingdom is within you. These falsehoods will die away very quickly once you claim your divine heritage, once you recognize your quantum world for what it is behind the smoke and mirrors. Now, a word of warning. Be prepared for this process to be malaligned, to be discredited and undermined by those who wish to profit from our misfortunes. The time for the old paradigm is coming to an end though. You are free, dear one. Your physical vessels are capable of so much more than you know. Our species is fighting a war of consciousness. The goal is a transformation into the next level of consciousness evolution. It is a consciousness revolution, which will be followed by a technological revolution of the kind that you cannot even imagine today. A planetary revolution. You can do this, and you shall win. Test all these things out and do not settle for anything less than your own magnificence. As Carl Jung once said, the world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you. How can you be free if others can decide for you who and what you are? You are the hero of your life's movie. You are on your hero's journey. On your journey, you will have desires and challenges. To achieve your desires and overcome your challenges, you'll have to grow, to move from your known world to the unknown. Do not fear the unknown, my friend. Embrace it. Embrace the unknown. The unknown is benevolent. It holds treasures and gifts. Leap and the net will appear. You will meet helpers and mentors. You will get supernatural aid if you ask for it. The universe will conspire to help you. Simply ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be open unto you. Embrace your obstacles. Face your fears. The obstacle is the way. And on the other side of fear, you will find yourself. Let your old self-concept die. Shed old skin. Die and be born again. The abyss of the unknown is your friend. It will reveal things to you. Your revelation will come from your darkest hours at times. You will resurrect anew like a phoenix, experiencing transformation, growth, integration of the yin-yang, also known as at-one-ment or atonement. Enlightenment into a new order of reality. These are the gifts of the game of life. Your time has come. Be ready. You are the one you've been waiting for. Your time has come. It's time to turn off the media. Time to follow your intuition. To trust yourself more than you trust so-called authorities. It is time for you to be the plan. You are the plan. Be what you really are, sovereign creator being. Remember the 5 steps that spirit takes to play the game of life. Remember the 5 parts of the game. Remember you are the character in the dream and the dreamer of the dream. You are both spirit and human. Remember that even though you are in the human role, you still have your divine powers to create your reality. Remember that you are the hero of your life's movie. You are on your hero's journey. This is your game, not the villain's game. The villains only win by fooling you into thinking that you are less than you really are, and then convincing you to have and live their dream. This way, they use your creative intent and powers against you. You don't have to live their dream. Don't buy into the shadow's dream. Wake up, recreate yourself anew. You are the one you have been waiting for.
Are you ready to win?
Almost every nation has invested enormous amount of money in building and stockpiling arms, armaments, bombs, missiles. So all of us as people, were we all thinking all these bombs are being kept for entertainment, for display, or it's artwork? What did you think? One day it will be used. The question is on whom? Wars are almost inevitable because economies are built on war. So we have no intent of stopping the war. Let's be clear about that. When it happens to us, we will cry. When it's happening somewhere else, it's drama. This inhuman attitude towards war and to killing and the suffering that other people go through, we must come out of that. Because most evil things have happened not necessarily because of evil intentions, simply apathy. You sleep through life. That is what is happening to the world, both in terms of soil and in terms of war. We sleep through. After World War II, we formed League of Nations. We made United Nations. The idea was never again such wars will happen, right? Since then, how many wars? Actually, if you look at it, there's not been a single day's break on this planet after World War II without at least a battle going on somewhere. We are not saying we are not in such a la-la land that we don't have any issues. We have issues. But this is the idea of setting up a platform which would solve problems. We have pushed it to the side and doing what we want.
So how do we wake up?
First thing is, within your hearts, your anger and hatred must go. I must tell you this.
А вы, в свою очередь, вешаете своему населению. И люди не чувствуют опасности. Вот меня что беспокоит. Ну как мы не можем понять? Мы тащим мир вообще в совершенно новое измерение. Вот в чем проблема. Делают вид, что как будто ничего не происходит. Но я не знаю даже, как достучаться.
And I say this, our country's in trouble. Something has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, and if we don't have smart leadership, you're going to end up with no world. The world is going to be blown to pieces. We have stupid people now running our country. The world is going to be blown to pieces.
What are you thinking about? If the nuclear bomb were to explode right now, what would you choose? Live or die? Live? Yeah, because if I died, then there'll be a lot of things I couldn't do anymore. I'd never see my family again. I'd miss the sun on my face. I'd never eat my favourite food again. Never travel. Never be in love. I wouldn't live. What about you? What would you choose? Live or die?
Die. Because if I survived, I wouldn't be able to do a lot of things anymore.
I'd never see my family again. I'd miss the sun on my face. I'd never taste my favourite food again. Never travel. Never be in love.
I wouldn't live.
The United Nations was founded so that we would never forget the crimes of great power. Are we now in danger of forgetting? Do we forget the lies that justified the conquest of Iraq and disguised America's plans to dominate all the world? And do we accept a distortion of intellect and morality that empties noble words like democracy and liberation of their true meaning, that says it's wrong for a terrorist to kill innocent people, but right for governments to commit the same crimes in our name? The answer is that we need not accept any of this if we recognize that there are now two superpowers. One is the regime in Washington, the other is public opinion, now stirring all over the world, perhaps as never before. Make no mistake, it's an epic struggle. The alternative is not just the conquest of faraway countries, it's the conquest of us, of our minds, our humanity, and our self-respect. If we remain silent, victory over us is assured.
Don't buy into the shadow's dream. Wake up, recreate yourself anew. You are the one you have been waiting for.
Are you ready to win?